Judge Reinhold joined us for a talk about his film career and what he's looking forward to this weekend. Reinhold is in Durango for Durango Film, an independent film festival, and he'll give a pre-screen talk Friday night at the Animas City Theater for a special showing of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the film that launched his career more than 30 years ago. Now, I know you've had a chance to see some of the things that are happening here this weekend, and you've also mentioned that Wes Studi and yourself go back a ways. And you're looking forward to seeing Wes?
Yeah, Wes and I go back some. We're both from Santa Fe, and I'm really proud of him and very excited to see his this film he directed, The Only Good Indian, is going to be at the Gaslight on Saturday.
It sounds like you've got some practice, of course, talking about Fast Times. So,
Yeah.
what is the lucky few that get into the theater? What are you going to talk about? And then I guess you open it up to questions. But what do you want to tell them first?
Well, the reason why I asked if I could speak before the film was most people have seen it. Maybe if you were in a coma at a certain time, in the first couple years. No, but I don't expect it. I don't expect everybody to have seen it, but most people have seen it. So what I like to do is add a whole new dimension to watching the film with all the backstories and all the stuff that occurred, and it gives a pretty rich new dimension to watching the film. So,
for the Every Fast Times, there's also a spring break or a zapped, sort of thing. What do you attribute the fact that we're sitting here 32 years later? I can quote every freaking line from the movie. Why? Why was this so good?
Yeah, it's been 30 years now. I hope to make a more significant cultural contribution, but nonetheless, I'm very touched that the movie endures. Universal just re-released it on a limited theatrical basis and not for just a midnight show. And one thing, because it's multi-generational now, you go to school, you're interested in sex, you're experimenting with it, and you say you're more experienced than you really are, and you go to after-school jobs, and a lot hasn't changed. It's not really that dated as movies can easily sometimes be. When I see Ruthless People, everybody's wearing those huge shoulder pads, and I see Beverly Hills Cop, and we're wearing sunglasses the size of hubcaps, and But Fast Times it's still kind of in the pocket there culturally, but I'm very touched that people are so fond of it, and one of the reasons why I think it endures is because Cameron Crowe wrote it. As an expose for Rolling Stone. So he masqueraded as a senior in a Long Beach high school for a whole year. The only person who knew that he was actually a Rolling Stone journalist who looked much younger than his age was the principal, the high school principal, only person. So even though Fast Times isn't known for like moral repercussions or things, they're there. I'm not going to say that, we're a morally responsible movie, but my little sister, with her experimentation, she does get pregnant. Damone is uncovered to be the cat he is, and everybody pretty much pays for the choices they make, either good or bad. But that's not what people remember it for. It was a good script. It felt authentic to us. It didn't feel like Porky's. It didn't feel, even though I love Animal House, and that was really got the wheel started with that generation of comedies, I must say. And it was very fortunate timing for me because I got to town a year later. I got to town in '79, late '79. Animal House opened in '78. There was a whole new genre of youth-oriented comedies and very experienced and talented comedy writers like Harold Ramis, and all those guys from National Lampoon and Saturday Night Live, all those writers. So we had really great caliber of writers writing those things, and it seemed very authentic to us. So it attracted a pretty good level of talent. Forrest Whitaker, who never had really any kind of role, and Sean he did that military movie that came out, Taps. Right. He had already done that. But it just felt real to us, and we felt very excited about it because of that. You know, it felt like a little carnal knowledge, even though it wasn't. A little American Graffiti, you know, even though that took place over one night. But it just felt real. So it attracted us, and everybody really wanted to be in it. I was living above Amy Heckerling at the time. She comes upstairs and says, "There's a part you're really right for, but I have to pretend that I don't know you when you come in the room, because if Art Linson, the legendary producer, knows that we know each other, he won't take you seriously." So I had to go in and shake her hand and, you know, and pretend I didn't know her, my next door neighbor. That's how I got the role, not because, I mean, she brought me in, but Art was looking at me like I wasn't there, and he's like, "Ah, he's so old. How old are you?" 22. He goes, "God, he's as old as Ed Asner. What are we gonna do?" I know, right? And I'm standing right there. He goes, "We'll just cast the senior class a little older. It's okay. Yeah, you got it."
Did you always fancy yourself a comedic actor? Because obviously, this and then Beverly Hills Cop and
Right.
Ruthless. I mean, that kind of stamped you as a comedic actor. Did you ever have a chance to be, you know, something different?
Oh, yes, very much so. I studied with Stella Adler for 3 years. I felt like I was very well trained. Um, the early movies I did real well, and I was certainly at the time thrilled about that, but it did limit me. And then I had some fateful things happen that kind of determined my direction. I was supposed to be in Peggy Sue Got Married. Francis Coppola calls me up on the phone. You never know how these people get your number. You don't really care because they're who they are, right? He says, "I want you to do this movie with Deborah Winger." I go down and he cooks me a spaghetti dinner. He's so paternal, you know, and I can't believe it. And then Deborah falls off the back of a pickup truck and converts her vertebrae. And I don't match up with Kathleen Turner, you know, it didn't work. So he gave it to Nick. And so that was disappointing. And then Mrs. Soulful, Gillian Armstrong, the Australian director, did a movie with Diane Keaton and Mel Gibson called Mrs. Soulful, and they used Matthew Modine because I was on a film and got I got the time difference wrong. And all she wanted to do was meet me before she cast me, and I didn't make the plane. So stuff like that. So I guess I'm meant to be, you know, a comedian. I'll tell you a brief story. I was walking down the street in New York and feeling sorry for myself because nobody was taking me seriously as a dramatic actor. This lady out of the blue walks up to me and says, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not disturbing you." No. She said, "My mother just died, and a couple weeks before, we rented Ruthless People, and it was the first time I'd seen her laugh in maybe 10 months. And just left me like that. And so right in the middle of my self-pity, I realized that comedies really do have a great impact on people. It's more relational than it maybe is the meaning of the film. Like, I'll get like, "Yeah, I used to go to my dad to see the Santa Claus movies or the Beverly," you know, so it brings people together, and comedies in a way that have more significance relationally than they do maybe the meaning that's coming off of the film, you know.
So you're here for the next couple nights.
Yeah.
You're gonna. I mean, are you gonna go and see some of these films, and you're gonna talk to some of these filmmakers and make their day?
I love to just come and see what happens and walk into as many screenings as I can. I'm really interested in the Native American program. I really want to support them. There's a lot of talent there. Sherman Alexie is considered well, he is. He's really the preeminent Native American writer. Writes for the New Yorker. He wrote Smoke Signals. John Trudell is a brilliant poet. I'd love to see him write something powerful. There's a lot of talent there, and I'm excited about the program here. That's one thing that makes the Durango Film Festival really unique, is they're supportive of Native American films. And films are so much, they're really powerful, good or bad. They're very, very powerful. They say in Psychology Today that when you're watching a movie in a theater, or maybe at home, that you're completely engaged in, it's the most vulnerable we are in our life, even more so than after sex, that you're wide open, your defenses are down, and you're receiving something. That's how powerful they are. So my point is that I'd love to. I want to see Native Americans have a stronger foothold in film culture, you know, because they have a lot to say. Their culture is all storytelling. There's awesome stories there, and I think Durango is doing a great thing by supporting that. Well, other than the support of the Native American filmmakers, I think it's great that there's a hands-on camera workshop for high school students. This is at the Durango Arts Center. It's on Saturday from 2 to 4, and I think that's a really unique and important part. It should be a part of every film festival, but it's one thing that makes Durango important, significant as a festival.